Hi, this is Bobby Kimbrough, and welcome to Off the Cuffs. Today I'm excited to have with me my brother, Mr. Yusef Suggs. Forgive me if I mispronounce the name, but I think I got it right, my brother. If I didn't, please correct me. I'm glad to have you here. You know, we invite people to our show that we believe that can make a difference. We invite people, whether they agree or disagree with us, because as you've heard me say many times before, I love conversations. I love spirited conversations. I believe that iron sharpens iron. And so I'm glad to have you as our guest today to talk about some things in the community, to talk about what you're doing. And once again, welcome to Off the Cuffs. I'm glad to have you, my brother.
I'd like to give thanks to you, Sheriff, as well for
having
that. Me. I know I found out at the kind of last minute Ms. Allen was supposed to be here, and being I'm her executive director, I'm able to fill in for her today.
I'm glad to do that.
Praises be to the Most High. And again, I'd like to give thanks to you as well for having here and being here and being on your platform and being able to explain to your audience who we are at Action4Now, what we do and what we're about and what we're looking forward to.
I'm glad to have you, brother. I'm glad to have you here. You know, like I said, I love having guests here that are making a difference in the community. Because at the end of the day, it's about making a difference in the community, making our community better. There's so many things happen, and so to have you here to talk about Action4Now, Action Now organization here, I'm glad to have you here. So just share with the people who don't know what the organization does and basically how it got started and who you are.
Well, primarily, I'm Yusef Suggs-El. I'm Executive Director of Action4Now. Primarily, we are a tenant advocacy group here in North Carolina. And what we do in our mission is to empower, encourage, and engage, with other nonprofits, other private and public sectors and groups to help bring about information and resources to help that particular area of environment based on their needs. As you would say, it's a tough job, pretty much, when you're trying to make a difference. Yeah. As I've said sometimes, it's like when you look at an octopus, it's like our issues have many tentacles. And it's a lot of things that need to be addressed, especially when change is needed and when it's actually shown and known to be needed. You're going to have particular interest groups who will step up. When people ready to see change will happen. And that's what's taking place right now. What we're doing in our mission, again, is trying to aid our people, the people here in Winston-Salem and abroad, about things that's happening in the communities. Sometimes we may not know the why. We kind of talked earlier about sometimes we may stand up for the wrong issues. And this is something that's there, as well. That happens. And you have to kind of calculate that within your planning, because you got a left and you got a right. Right. You got a yin, you got a yang. Exactly. So you have to do your due diligence and your research and knowing your why. So when you do take a stand, that you have a reason to stand. You're standing in law. You're able to come out and not just make a statement about something but it's something with substance. It's with merit. Right. And that's what we're about. And sometimes it's not as pretty as we want it to be. It gets pretty ugly sometimes because we're dealing with people who are dealing with evictions and illegal contracts. Everybody don't know how to understand what's in the compounds of a contract. So your organization help people that are being evicted. Yes. Okay. Okay. Yeah. One of the areas of eviction. One of the areas of eviction. Yes. Like I said, we are a tenant advocacy group. We help people not only with evictions, but we help those tenants who are dealing in mold, areas of mold and causations of mold, or unfit living. We were fortunate enough in 2019 to get a city ordinance amended, dealing with unfit habitation of premises in our city ordinances. And this is something a big issue that we fight every day, all throughout the year. Of course, COVID has slowed some things down, but right now we're in a position that I'm very fortunate and happy about, and having some discussions with other organizations that we're looking forward to things that's going to change in 2021. In other words, the year of the slumlord is over because everybody has a right, has a human right. So within that human right, everybody has the right to be able to live in a habitable condition, per city ordinance, per general statutes, per constitution, per Declaration of Human Rights. And we need everybody, especially those who are oath takers in the community, to help ensure and represent the people to their utmost ability.
I like that. So, a lot of times, a lot of conversations are being had in the community, and people have no idea what the cause is. How do we get here? So I always ask this question is that, how can we bring about positive change? How can we work toward the end game of what you're wanting to see? Because, like I always say this, we don't have to agree on things, and I think that that's a good thing sometimes when people meet in life. And like I said, iron sharpens iron.
Mm-hmm.
We strengthen one another.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you see things that you never saw before based on what somebody brings to you. I've learned so much about myself in the last 2 years. I've learned so much about this county, and I'm from Winston. I thought I knew a lot. There wasn't nothing you could tell me about Winston-Salem.
Mm-hmm.
But I've learned so much about this county. So tell me what it is, Yusef, that we can do to help bring about what you see the change of. What do you think the needs are? Tell me what you think they are.
Well, when we talk about it in that perspective, you always have to look at the basics. We have to always look at food, clothing, and shelter.
Right.
How is food, clothing, and shelter helping the people here in the city, and throughout the county and throughout the state? One of the things I think that is highly needed, and as I just alluded to, that will be taking place this year, is more of a collaboration among the grassroots organizations that I know and am affiliated with. Again, when people are ready for change, change happens. It's a part of nature. It's a part of the universe. And again, these collaborative efforts, I think, are going to be will create an enigma throughout the community. Because again, Winston-Salem is such a historical and has such an historical aspect to it that Winston-Salem really can be leading the state and being a model of cities for everybody else to look towards, instead of us looking towards Durham or Raleigh or Greensboro in that regards. So it's a struggle. So some of the things that is going to come out of these meetings that I'm kind of preempting is that information is education. So
no question. People perish for lack of it.
They perish for lack of knowledge. So through efforts of everyone that's about change, we're going to bring information to the table. We're going to lay it on the line because it's needed. As we're talking about, we got to look at the literacy rate. We got to look at the food. Nobody's having children, or no child wakes up and say, I want to be hungry when I turn 10, or I want to be poor by the time I get 13. So we have to keep that in mind. So we have to do the things that are important to bring about this type of change. And again, it's going to take upon not only the efforts of those grassroots initiatives and grassroots organizations that I know, and those people who are already making a difference in their particular areas throughout the city. We have to do more with these individuals. If we're trying to bring about change in some of these areas, we need to deal with people who are already in those areas and also making a difference. It's highly important. It's not the easiest thing, but this is where it is time to learn. And I've kind of written about that in a forthcoming book that's coming out because we have to expect differences. We have to agree to disagree.
Exactly.
We have to be able to listen, and we cannot prejudge as well. And I think if we follow some of those tactics, I think it can bring about the unification that we need in the community. So there will be what I call a UFC, a Unity for Change conference that's going to be taking place early part of next month, for opportunity for those who want to really come together and grasp this, this concept of unity and wanting for change and make it happen. Because we have people that are very profound in what they do in their respective professions. And I think that it's kind of like James Harden coming together with KD up in Jersey.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of talented people out here, and they're doing some awesome things. So it is a difference, you know, when it comes to collaborating, because some things have not happened like this before in the community.
So you spend a lot of time in the community. I knew you before I ever got into this position. I've seen your works in the community. I've seen the love you have for the community.
Thank you.
Tell me something and give it to me straight. You know, you and I have always been straight down the middle. We kept it, as they say, we kept it 100. Tell me what you see or what is needed in the community. When you look around and you talk about some of the needs of the community, when you talk about things that are happening in the community, you know, tell me some of the things that you think are needed in the community.
Okay.
And how can a collaborative effort on what is needed to bring about that change?
Well, I was going to say, outside of the collaboration initiatives with other nonprofits, we need those who are elected officials to take their oath seriously.
When you say that, give me an example. Like, I know I take my oath. I've taken several oaths in my life, and I take them very seriously. And so when you say that, I take the oath that I took in front of thousands of people very seriously. And every day I remind myself of that oath when I walk in the building. You know?
See, when I talk about elected officials and the taking of an oath, like you said, it is serious.
Very serious.
When we look at the definition of oath in the law dictionary, a couple of words stick out to me where it talks about performance.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that sticks out to me is that it's actually an oath before your creator first, and then your people.
The people, that's right.
You know, so it is a very serious oath. So when I'm saying that we need
and you know, it's a legal oath too.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's illegal and lawful.
And lawful.
And
exactly.
lawful as well.
Exactly.
So this is why I say when we need, there's a lot, in my opinion, there's been a lot of inappropriate use of finances throughout the city that could have been utilized in other areas throughout the city, because of some of the issues that we're facing have been prevalent for years. It hasn't just started, 2013, 2012. We can go back in 1997. I used to be a part of the Black Leadership Roundtable when that was in existence, and to just see some of the lack of things that have taken place in the community since then, it shows, again, this is where we need leadership. And that leadership comes in our elected officials, because they are the ones who've taken an oath to say, we're going to represent to the best and bring about the needed change in this city. So when you look at those, and sometimes in some of the meetings I've been in, sometimes people are being deluded away from the real issue, sometimes even from some city officials. When they say, well, I'm representing my ward, or you don't stay in this ward, so you shouldn't have anything to say. Well, the thing of it is, if you're a taxpayer, your tax speaks for the whole county.
That's a fact.
That's a fact. So I should not have precedence over my child if I care about children. That means I care about your child, your child, your child. I don't have to know them. But if they have a right to habitate a place with no mold in existence, then we need to protect that, because we know what the causations of mold can do to any individual once it's airborne. I mean, the CDC states it. You can go down to the health department here and state it. So we're dealing with some serious issues. So this is where we need our elected officials to stand up. Our roads are bad, heating conditions. We need moratoriums on these evictions because COVID is here. Things are happening. So we need to look at, and it's another thing that sticks out in that definition of oath, is moral. We got to do that which is moral.
And you know what? We've had this conversation, well, not with you, but I'm saying I've had this conversation. People talk about evictions, right? During the pandemic. I think it was an article in the paper. We did a press conference a couple weeks ago, and we talked about evictions, and we talked about COVID. And I'm the first one to say, and I've talked about this, I have sympathy and empathy for anybody being convicted. I have been there. I have been where the people are that are being evicted. Had I been able to tell you this years ago, I'd have been ashamed to say that, but God has brought me to a place to where I don't fear the truth. I don't fear sharing who I am and where I've been, because where I have been has brought me to where I am. It has strengthened me. So last year when the evictions was carrying on, and I did the thing, and I told people, I'm not for evicting people. I'm not. I'm not. I said, but I don't have a legal standing. I have to be legal, because if I don't, I can be arrested for not carrying out the oath of the job. And so at the time, Chief Justice Beasley heard my prayers. God heard my prayers and the people's prayers as well. And she stopped the eviction statewide. They were stopped, right? Fast forward, the evictions had begun again, right? And what I was trying to explain when it comes to the evictions is that I have no authority in that. That takes place way before I get the paperwork. And I can't supersede a judge's signature. In other words, once a judge signs off on it and decrees this what takes place, I have no authority to supersede that. Of course, I would like to say, no, I'm not evicting this. I have seen the videos of mothers crying and, people crying. That's not a pretty sight.
No, it's not.
It's not.
It's not a pretty sight.
And remember what I said when I started this conversation. I've been there. You know what I'm saying? Been there. I'll share this story with you. I probably shouldn't even share it again, but I will, because you touched a part in my heart. I remember some years ago, somebody want to fact check me, they can. I was in that same place, man. It was an awful place to be in for someone to come and tell me I gotta go, right? I cried, I was angry. I had to leave with boys, and figure out where am I going as a man, right? And I had no choice but to go. And I look back at that point in that place in my life, and it has affected me for the rest of my life. Because every time I go through our civil section, I stop and I tell my guys, listen, I know you're doing your job, but I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to suggest to you that you do it as gently and as kind as you can. You never disrespect somebody while you are evicting them, because you're going to somebody at the lowest point of their life up until that point. And so I applaud the people, especially your organization, for helping tenants. I applaud that. I do. But like you said, with the oath, right? I took an oath that I got to uphold the law. There's some laws like on the books that I don't agree with, but I have to enforce them. I have to follow them, because I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution. I took an oath to support and defend this country and this county against enemies, foreign and domestic. And sometimes there are laws on the books that I don't agree with, but I have to enforce the law. And so what I think is a great tool that a conversation should be had is that a lot of times when things are happening in our community, I think that people should do their due diligence and say, okay, here's the issue. Let's see who can help us resolve the issue, rather than just saying, here's the issue and let's just go,
attack it.
Exactly.
Well, again, throughout time, we've seen that change can happen.
Oh, of course change can happen.
When you look at Madam C.J. Walker and what she used to do, and part of her mansion she used to utilize for those who wanted to make change, as, the talent and tenth to come forth and be the movers and shakers throughout their communities. So again, these things can happen now. Again, that's why I say everybody must play their role, from my elected officials, as you say, even to your department.
Of course.
Because, again, everybody deserves the respect, and their human rights need to be protected. And this is where the oath is very important. One of the things that stick out, as I've heard before, even some city council meetings, is the term harmony. You know, if we're going to be in harmony here throughout this city, again, and we can be a perfect model for others to follow throughout this state, that's the type of change it's going to take. You know, everybody, you know, if you stand up for your oath, you stand up for your profession, do it in your due diligence. You know, as we learn and teach and help people out, they understand that they have a right to stand up, that their rights are not suppressed, you know, that their Bill of Rights are not taken away. You know, these things are highly important because a lot of times people are being coerced, you know, as we were finding out in some of these evictions, the illegal contracts. Even if a moratorium is there and a landlord is finding something else to try to come at the tenant about. So through conversations with other individuals, through other organizations, through other associations, you know, we are now going to step up even more, starting with myself, you know, to help protect these individuals. Because some of the times it's not about the money. It's about the neglect and the landlord willingly and knowingly being a derelict of that duty. And what problems does that cause? That's a willful violation of North Carolina General Statutes 4242. That's a willful violation of the codes of the city ordinances. You know, especially when you willfully and knowingly are neglecting the duty to just make sure somebody has a safe place to live.
You know, one of the things that I have noticed, and I would tell you this, and I've said it many times, is that to bring about change, it's going to require the entire community. It's going to require the west side, the east side, the north side, and the south side. It's going to take the entire community. It's going to take what we used to call all hands on deck. Mm-hmm. It's going to take all of us pulling together for causes. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of wealth in this county, a lot of wealth. There's a lot of wealth in this community. There are a lot of people in here that are willing to help. There are a lot of people that I think that we need to concentrate. You know what would be interesting to do? I said this 2 years ago, 2 years ago. I was at a conference, and somebody asked me a question about, I forget what it was about, how the conversation went. And I said, how nice would it be? So in law enforcement, when there's a problem, you create what is called a task force, a group of people to examine that task and see what is needed to resolve that issue. They call them task force. You have a task force for this, task force for that. Here's what I suggested. I said, why not create a task force Winston, task force Winston-Salem / county, right? And you bring people from various walks of life, various races, various economic backgrounds, various political affiliation, and you handpick these people, right, to look at and examine issues like what you're talking about. Issues almost like a triage. You know, you go into a hospital, you come in there, they triage your issues, what's going on. And once they realize, okay, it's a kidney stone, then they know what medicine to apply, they know what to do. So if we bring a task force group together and say, you know what, we're going to triage what's happening in various parts of our county. We find this issue. Now let's apply the resources to fix that issue. I think that will be much more effective, because what happens is, I look at it from a shotgun effect. If you shoot buckshots out of a shotgun, they spread. It's a pattern that spreads. But a sniper, his objective is to hit one target with one shot, and to be specific. There it is, to be specific. So I think that if we took this and developed that task force to look at issues in our community, my goodness, we could be so much more successful.
And I agree with that. And I would like to counter back on that term being specific, because just like you saying, when we're doing things in law is specific.
Oh, yeah.
So even in having this particular task force, what better way to look at it to make sure, again, that no one's rights are violated, or if everything was done in the proper perspective.
Right. Because of that, you could have a lawyer on the task force. You could have a realtor on the task force. You could have a plethora of people from all walks of life on the task force. And that's what would make the task force so much more successful, because you would have people with specific knowledge, right? I use the example, if I go to church every Sunday, that don't make me a preacher, right? If I'm married to a doctor, it don't make me a physician assistant. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm in this group or I know this, it don't make me a realtor. Because I've read the law books, it don't make me a lawyer, right? So what I'm saying is that you get people on this task force with a specific knowledge base that when we look at it, he or she can say, you know what, that's a violation of contractual law. You get a realtor. You get someone from, just a whole variety of people to sit on this task force. People set up investigative groups all the time to figure out what the problem is with something. If we sit down and say we're going to put a group together to look at the relationships in the county, the relationships between various groups of people, look at the economics, look at the literacy, look at the living conditions, look at food deserts, look at so many things, and let's sit down and say, okay, now how do we fix this? How do we deal with this, right? Because what I have found from seeing is that one guy moving is just one guy, right? But when you get several people moving, that's a movement. Mm-hmm. You get the right people to the table. And when I say right people, I'm talking about, I think sometimes, and I could be wrong for this, so charge this to my heart, I think that sometimes people get involved just to be seen, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. But then there are people like you and other folk that I have seen that are in it because they believe in it. They're not trying to be fashionable. They're not trying to just be there for the minute. They in it to win it, right? So you get people in it that are pulling for it because they love the city. I don't do this job for the money. I had no idea what this job paid when I decided to run, mm-hmm. nor did I care. I was a retired agent, and all I wanted to do was make a change in a city and a county that had given me so much as a little boy. I do this job every day for the love of it, I sit sometimes and look. I was talking to my executive assistant this morning, and I said, got a call again and wanted to know, was I sure about the job? And I said, I'm sure. I'm not going nowhere. This is home for me. I do this because I love it. The hell that I have caught for the last year, they can't drive me away. I love this place. And them the kind of people that we got to put on this task force that love this city, this county. Whether they black, whether they white, I don't even care what they are. If they love this city, I say this all the time, then I'm going to be quiet. My father told me this when I was a little boy. They was having a situation in the house, and I've shared this before. And my father told me this. He said, son, show me where a man spends his time and his money, or his time and his resources, and I can show you what he loves. As a little boy, I didn't quite get that. As a 9-year-old, I thought my dad, okay, here my dad go again, right? But the older I got, I saw where my father spent his time at, right? I saw where he spent his money at. I know what he loved. So when I see people like you, brother, and I see where you spend your time and your resources, I know what you love, right? So when people come to the table, what's their agenda? So let's put this task force together. Let's bring some people to the table that's going to examine what's really happening in our community, not what's happening in Buncombe, Mecklenburg, but what's happening right here in this community. Because as you said, your words, and I agree with you, in this city, in this county, we have the ability to be the drum major, the model for throughout, not only North Carolina, but throughout this region.
And this is why I say, again, the collective efforts that's getting ready to come forth, even more, from grassroots efforts, grassroots associations, people who are astute in dealing with the food desert. We have to back them up even more. You know, people in whatever professions that are really trying to make a difference in the community. Again, what has happened in the community sometimes in trying to make that difference, somehow they will reach the organizations that are not really doing anything in the community. And the ones that are really doing something in the community are overlooked. So these are the ones that we have to reach out to. These are the ones who we have to connect with, you know, and break that bread, you know, because it can bring about that change. It will bring about that change. As long as we see the need, then the change is going to come. And sometimes it may not come as pretty because throughout the course of history, one thing I've noticed, and I'm still young, you can't get everybody on accord at the same time.
You can't.
However, you can begin to pioneer it, and it will build. So you have to start that building process with those who are willing and able and being ready to build, you know, and being able to go through the ups and downs. Because, again, nobody's perfect.
That's the
You know, we're all willing to learn, but we're in a prime, opportune time right now to truly make that happen.
What I want to say this, man, I'm going to give you the last word, is I love this county. I was telling a group of guys last week, we were talking. I love this county because sometimes we don't agree. We don't. But we walk away in love, what I have seen. We may go back and forth. We may bicker with one another. We may throw shots over the barrel at somebody. You know, we may throw little slick words at each other. But I think at the core of it, we still love each other. At the core of it, we still have respect for one another. And so anything that the sheriff's office can do to better this community, we're going to do that. Because you've heard me say this before on many occasions, I'm going to do what's legal. I got to do what's right. Not black, white, but what's right. And I got to do what's moral. You know, every day I look at Bobby in the mirror, then I have to adjust myself and say, I got to answer to God. And I got to answer to people, right? And so every decision that I make, I put it through the litmus test. I put it through the test. I have to. And so I'm grateful, man, that we had this conversation. I want you to know that if there's something that we can do to assist, to help out, to better the cause, to better the living conditions, you know, I get myself in situations sometimes that have nothing to do with the sheriff's office. People say, well, why are you doing this? And I say this all the time. It may not be a legal issue right now. It may be a social issue. But if I don't get involved, that social issue has the ability to become a criminal issue tomorrow.
As long as there's a policy behind it.
Exactly. So I have to, issues that matter to this community, that matter to this entire community, regardless of where it's at, it has to be a concern. To me, the sheriff's office, this is the office of the people. He's more than a judicial official. He's more than a law enforcement guy. He has to be an ambassador of goodwill. He has to have a community credibility. And every day, I serve the people. We serve the people. And that is why I wanted you, your organization, to be on here today, because I want to hear from everybody, because I believe that everybody has a voice in this community. Regardless of whether you agree or disagree, everybody has a voice. And so anything you want to say right before we go, I'm glad you came by today and chatted with me. Anything you want to say and leave with the people before we go? It's yours.
I'd just like to say, again, I'm with Action4Now. We can be reached at actionfornowinc@gmail.com. And I will be getting back in contact with you as I speak with other organizations who are ready to make about that change, because they're ready to make a real change, and they've been about this change. It's just that, again, sometimes these organizations are overlooked. However, we cannot overlook them, again, because they're needed. They're right there in the communities. So if we want this change to truly happen, we have to reach out. We have to be like an extension to this arm right here on this microphone. We have to be there and be ready to make it, because right now it's prevalent. The literacy rate is what it is. The hunger rate is where it is. We're already at that point that we shouldn't be at. So that's why we need leadership. We need these different organizations. And not just being a Guinness Book World Records just for churches or different organizations, but if everybody's trying to make a difference, then can't see why it's not going to happen.
Well, count us in. Like I said, the sheriff's office is the office of the people. Anything I can do to help or better this community, I'm in. Because, this is my community, man. I was born and raised here. And when I'm gone, they're going to lay me to rest right there on New Walkertown Road in Evergreen. Mm-hmm. Already got my plot there. So, this is home for me, man. I love this place. I ain't going nowhere. So anything I can do to help you or to help the cause to make this a better community, to help with the food desert, the cause of the food desert, the cause of the illiteracy rate, if we have to read books, let's do it. If we have to go to the community and read them, let's go. If we have to do food drives every month, let's get it. Whatever I can do, the office of the people, count us in. And I appreciate you coming by. And as always, this is Bobby Kimbrough with Off the Cuffs. Thank you for watching us, and thank you for joining us. You too can be a difference maker. I want to leave you with something that just came to my mind. Several years ago, I was in Puerto Rico, and I was on a security detail with Martin Luther King III. I was assigned to his detail. He came to Puerto Rico to speak. His father, Martin Luther Jr., had been over there several years before he came, and he came on the same day that his father was there, and he spoke at a place called Fort Buchanan, which is a military base in Puerto Rico. And he was closing up his speech that he spoke to the military personnel, and he was speaking to the federal agents and some of the people on the island. And he talked about a man who left home trying to change the world. This man spent several years trying to change the world. And the man realized that, I can't change the world, so I'm going to go back and try to change just my country. And the man came back to his country and tried to change just his country. And then he realized that he couldn't do that. And he went back to his little community, and he realized that I can't do that either. And as he was sitting in front of the mirror, and he looked in the mirror, and he said to himself, if I change me first, then I can bring the change that I'm looking for.
Starts with him.
It starts with me. So what I'm saying is the change that we're looking for starts with each one of us. Mm-hmm. So let's do that. Let's start the change. And as always, thank you. I love you. Love this city, this county. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you.